What's up, y'all? Thanks so much for clicking on the video. My name is Leah, and let's recap and review Real Housewives of Atlanta. This is season 16, part 1 of the reunion. And let me just say this. This cast is full of liars. On top of that, this definitely did not need to be 3 parts. Honestly, I was hoping for 2 at the most. Honest, I would have been fine with an hour and 30 minutes and we could have called it a day. But I definitely do not believe this needed to be 3 parts. But here we are. So let's get into it. So y'all know sometimes before we get into the review, we get a little spicy, just a little bit. And I just have a few things I want to talk to you guys about. So first up, let's talk about Angela and Charles, because when I tell you it has been embarrassing and cringy and uncomfortable the past few days, and it's all Charles's fault, okay? It is all Charles's fault and Angela because she enables it. So Charles was on this podcast. I don't remember the name, but I do have the clip and I'm going to show you guys where he pretty much was asked about his relationship with Angela. And it seems like the podcast is about relationships, but for the 57 and up demographic, because it was given old. Matter of fact, 50 and up. I'll change that. 50 and up demographic. So pretty much the interviewers or the podcast host end up asking Charles, so what made you want to marry Angela? And so let me play that clip for you guys.
What were your reasons behind getting married?
That's gonna be the $1 billion question, because it wasn't even planned. We was in Vegas, we just did it.
Wow.
I just, I don't know. I think I told somebody, I think somebody might put something in my drink that night, but I don't know. We went to the mall the next day, got a ring. I got to get a jacket. Just went to the service, got married.
When I saw this, I said, ooh, Charles. Like, I was trying to give Charles the benefit of the doubt because, some people aren't comfortable with cameras in their face. Like, playing basketball versus having reality TV cameras in your house, strangers every single day for 6 months is a lot. And then, filming confessionals. And I was just like, you know what? Maybe he's just uncomfortable. I also was like, well, maybe he just has a dry sense of humor, because I do have a few male friends who have a dry sense of humor, but they're good people. Like, they genuinely don't mean anything. Their humor is just, it's dry. Or they're very sarcastic in a sense. And I was like, maybe that's it. But there's been several moments during the season when Charles and Angela filmed the confessionals, and this moment where I'm just like, yeah, Charles enjoys making Angela the butt of the joke. And Angela enables it. So it's like, I don't really feel that bad for her, because I'm like, at some point, girl, you got to pick up your dignity. Okay? But she didn't do it this week. And I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, unless she's, outsmarting all of us and preparing for a divorce. I don't know. But Angela saw this, and then she decided to come out with her own clip in response to this, and she posted it on her Instagram, and her daughter was featured in it as well. So let me play that clip for you guys.
And the people want to know. My daughter is telling me. Mari, what's the question?
The question is, how did you and Charles get married, and what was the build up to that? Seems like everybody's curious.
Oh my gosh, where did this question come from?
You know what they say, never give a man a mic.
Charles was behind a mic.
Someone let him out.
Oh no! Go get Charles.
Let me go get him.
Go get Charles. The people want to know, how did we get married?
Charles.
Oh, Charles, baby.
So I saw this and I was like, okay, Angela, this is making it worse. If I was you, I wouldn't have even said anything. I wouldn't have said nothing. You already embarrassed me one time. I'm not going to add to it. So I saw this and I was like, okay, girl. But then she made it worse, because she made another video with her daughter and Charles in it together, and pretty much announcing that Charles has a podcast coming out called Banned. So I'm going to speed the video up because it's 2 minutes and I think 15 seconds. But honestly, Angela was just talking too slow for me. But maybe I got TikTok brain. But here we are. So let me play the clip for you guys.
Charles, the world wants to know what's the real story of how y'all got married.
The real story? We went to Vegas.
Oh.
I took Delta.
Oh, I'm hot. Oh.
And, had a great time. I made a comment about the $1 billion question, and I thought I was drugged and just trying to be funny. It wasn't, some people took it, some people didn't, so.
No, you're not funny. It's not funny.
No, but we had, we got married, we had a good time in Vegas.
Oh, yeah, we planned to go to Vegas. Yeah, we planned to get married, actually. Yeah. You remember that?
We went to Vegas, got married. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You remember that? What song did I walk down the aisle on?
Luther.
Oh, you remember that.
Yeah.
Charles, the world. Oh, I didn't know if you remembered all this.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh, do you remember asking me to get married?
Huh?
Huh?
Last year?
Do you remember?
Yes.
You do. I don't know if someone who was drugged would remember that.
Huh? Drug?
Yeah.
I mean, you said we going to get there. I said I was trying to be funny with the
It
joke.
wasn't funny.
Yeah, well,
it wasn't funny.
I'm not a comedian, so.
You're not Red Fox, no.
Red Fox. Okay.
Eddie Murphy, no.
Okay.
None of that. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
It's hard out here in these streets. Vegas,
Okay.
yeah. But
I'm banned.
you're banned, but
okay.
you can tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. July 29th, banned. Our YouTube
Okay.
channel will be released. You excited?
Yeah.
You gonna tell the whole truth about how we got
They
married?
can see everything.
You gonna tell the whole truth?
There's nothing but the truth.
You gonna let them know real men do cry?
I'm gonna let them know the truth.
And it wasn't no drugs. All right, y'all. We'll see you July 29th, banned. Subscribe now.
So if you couldn't read the caption because you got distracted by the video, this is what it says. Hey y'all, at the Real Oakley 34 is officially banned from all podcasts except his own #banned by Charles Oakley, link in bio. Thank you, baby, at Amari Marie, which is her daughter. May the love that Angela has for Charles never find me, y'all. Because I just would never want to forego my self-respect in such a way for a man. Like, I don't know how Angela just doesn't have pride. I don't get it. Like, coming out the first time was already embarrassing enough. Then the second time to announce that he has a podcast coming out, it's just like, girl. And then to put emphasis on like he wasn't on drugs, I'm just like, girl. Angela. You can clearly tell that Angela takes pride in being Charles's wife. She takes pride in having the Oakley name. And I need her to unpack that in therapy. Because it seems like she's doing all of this to have this man, but to specifically have the Oakley last name. And that's not to knock Charles, because I've seen the 30 for 30 special on the Chicago Bulls. So I know how important and how influential and his legacy is in the NBA. But it's not enough for me to be getting on the internet and publicly embarrassing myself the way that Angela does, or the way that Charles does it to Angela and she just accepts it. I pray it never is me, okay? So moving on, let's talk about Britt Eady. So Britt finally posted her reunion look. I know Paris was teasing that she had a reunion look, but the first post I saw, she captioned it saying, "No Britt, no reunion." Then she followed up that post with a video of her in the dress. I can't play the audio because it's All of the Lights by Kanye West and Rihanna. That's actually one of my favorite songs. I think she looks nice. If I had to rate it, I would give it like a 7.5. It's just like I'm over her always being naked, and the cape doesn't really do it for me. I feel like if there was no naked parts with the capes, she would be giving a mean sermon at somebody's pastoral anniversary, especially with the hair. It's giving revival chic, all right? Naked church. I think out of the video, I think the best part of the video is when she turned into like Mercury. It reminded me of the Silver Surfer. Shouts out to all of my Fantastic Four fans and stuff. But yeah, I give it a 7.5. I wasn't really impressed by it because I'm like, if you're suing them for $20 million, why are you trying to take part in the fun? You know, like Britt always gives me stunts in shows, so I'm not impressed by her. But I'm like, well, if anything, you probably should have posted this outfit during the time when the other women, their reunion looks were posted officially, so that there could be more of a comparison. But this kind of feels like Britt saw everybody's critiques of the other women's outfits and then gave us this, because this is like 2 weeks too late, in my opinion. But Portia liked one of the posts, and mainly the post that says no Brit, no reunion. So I guess they're still cool. And then Britt actually came back with another post where she says this: as I close this chapter, I want to thank everyone who supported me, my friends, my followers, my amazing team, and everyone who defended my name. I decided to walk away from something that no longer served me because I chose peace over destroying my mental. It is very easy to say what I should have done when most have not walked a day in my shoes. I choose me, and a lot of people can't say they choose themselves. I still have a lot of healing left to do, but you can't heal in the same place that made you sick. I don't owe anyone closure. I only owe myself to do what's best for me. My journey here is done. And then she ended it with Brit and a kiss emoji. Again, I told y'all I'm not impressed by her. So even this feels like, girl, I'm the victim, even though you caused a lot of problems for people. And I think it's extremely cowardice not to show up to the reunion and, you know, say your piece or stand on the things that you said and try to revert back to, oh, my mental health, even though you caused a lot of issues, you caused a lot of problems, you caused a lot of damage. So yeah, I'm not impressed by Britt. I'm glad she gone. But nice outfit though. So let's get into this review. All right, y'all, so let's get into this review. So like I said in the intro, this definitely did not need to be 3 parts. I wish Bravo wasn't so tethered to the idea that every housewife reunion needs to be 3 parts. I feel like if you have enough information to make it 3 parts, then make it 3 parts. But if we don't have that much information, then we could bump this down to 2 parts or just make it a reunion special and it'd be 1 hour and 45, you know? But I was just like, this doesn't need to be 3 parts, especially with Britt not being there, as well as Kenya not being asked to come to the reunion. And I feel like once they realized Britt wasn't there, they should have called Kenya up, because I'm pretty sure she would have came to the reunion real quick if she knew that, you know, Britt wasn't there and y'all couldn't get in contact with her. I don't know. Production's not thinking quick on their feet. And maybe, you know, I'm just some girl on the internet yapping about Housewives, but I just feel like if we didn't get Britt, then y'all should have called Kenya. Y'all were in Georgia. Y'all should have called Kenya and said, girl, get over here in about maybe an hour. Okay, I know you got a yellow dress in there. Just come and sit down and give us a little bit of something. We will pay you. We'll pay you. But just come on. We need you, okay, girl? But I don't know. But let's get into this review. So the episode actually opens up and we find out that the girls are in Georgia, like I said. They're at this place called Assembly Studios. And we see pretty much everybody show up on time except for Drew and Britt. We see that Portia is asleep in her dressing room. It's 6:30 in the morning. And the room is dark. Ain't nobody in there. But the rest of the ladies are sitting in their chairs getting hair and makeup done. We actually see Shamia talking to her mom. And you can tell that she is uncomfortable or a little weary about the reunion. She's like, her mom's trying to give her words of encouragement, but you can see in her face that she's nervous, okay? We then see Phaedra go to Britt's room and Britt's not there. And she's like, okay, is something up? Like, where is Britt? So then we see her go to Portia's room. Now it's 8:30 in the morning. And she's like, Portia, get up. Like, she like, get up. Britt's not here. And Portia's like, what time are we starting to film? And they said, Phaedra ends up telling her, girl, 9 a.m. So I was like, it's 8:30. Your glam team isn't here. I said, yeah, Portia's about to be late. But I think they're all about to be disrespectfully late. And they were, if you ask me. So we then see Shamia, Angela, and Kelly talking about the reunion and their reunion jitters. And then we see Cynthia go into Portia's room. And she's like, Britt's really not here? And they're like, girl, no. We then hear like a production hand's voice where they're like, yeah, no, she not here. Like, seriously, she not here. And they're like, wow. So then Portia tries to call her, but Britt doesn't pick up the phone. So now we see that Andy has been sitting on stage for basically like 3 hours, but it's 2.5 hours. And if I was Andy, I would have went back to my dressing room and would have went to sleep. Like, if Portia can go to sleep and not be ready at the appropriate time, I would have did the same. Like, I would have came on stage once everybody else was on stage. The moment Drew got on stage 3 hours late, that's when I would have walked on the stage and been like, hey, y'all, let's start the reunion. Because what you're not going to do is have me waiting for you guys. And I've been up since probably like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. Because if everyone got there around 5 or 6, that means you had to get up at 4, maybe 4:30 to get there on time. So yeah, no, I would have went back to that dressing room and laid down and took a nap. No, ma'am. So Kelly gets on the stage first. Then there's Angela. Then there's Shamia. When Portia gets up there next, Shamia was laughing and talking to Andy until Andy said, well, hey, Portia. Shamia's face immediately went cold. She was like, I said, ooh. Okay. So then Portia sits down. She was like, man, I thought I was going to be last. No, girl, no. So then we see Phaedra pull up, and the last person to get on stage is Drew. So then Andy starts the reunion. You know, he does his pleasantries, welcoming the ladies. He welcomes Portia first. Honestly, Portia looked really good, but her breastplate or the corset looked like it was painful to sit in. I hope she had some type of like cloth or foam, because it looked like it was digging into the center of her chest. We also find out that she got her boobs lifted, and they harken back to when she first got them done in 2014, where she was like, you want to smell them? And I thought that was funny. I think it's cute to reminisce sometimes. So then Andy welcomes Phaedra. He then goes to Shamia, and he's like, you know, Miss Shamia, you know, you went from +1 to the one, girl. And the moment Shamia starts talking, Portia does the same thing that Shamia did with her face. She immediately goes, I said, oh, so y'all both not seeing it for each other. I said, this is going to be interesting. Because anytime throughout this reunion, Portia would say something, Shamia would make a face. Or anytime Shamia would say something, Portia would make a face. So I said, there's definitely a lot of tension between y'all, and y'all got beef. Or maybe it's chicken, but it's definitely an issue, okay? So then they get to Angela. We find out that Angela has her fan, because they asked about her fan, but this time it's bedazzled, and everyone laughs about it. We then get to Britt Edie, and Andy lets it be known, Britt not here. Everyone's like, really? She really not here? And they're like, yeah, she's not here. So then Andy ends up asking the women, like, so how do you feel about that? He first goes with Kelly. And Kelly is like, I'm actually surprised, but also kind of not shocked. Like, she went through and destroyed and decimated, like, relationships in this friend group. And she's doing what she does best, being the victim and the villain at the same time. But I feel like she should have been here to answer for certain things. So then they go to Portia, and Portia basically says that, you know, she actually had a conversation with Britt. She didn't tell me that she wasn't coming. She just, you know, we were talking about, you know, the husbands being there. So Andy was like, was her husband not coming? And she was like, no, she was actually like saying, no, he's ready to come to the reunion. So I'm surprised she's not here. Phaedra ends up saying that they're a sisterhood. I said, okay, girl. And that, you know, this is a sorority, you know, and I wish that she felt comfortable coming to speak and say her truth. And I hate that she didn't take the opportunity to say what needs to be said. So then Shamia ends up saying that she wished that Britt would have been here, because she definitely said some things that weren't true, and she wanted to confront Britt about those things. Angela basically says, like, dang, I was going to get her at this reunion, and I wish she would have been here. And so Drew ends up saying that she also wished Britt was here, because she said Britt basically texted me that she was going to be suing me here soon. And everyone's like, suing you? And even I was like, why would she be suing you? Why is she filing a lawsuit against you? And she said basically it had something to do with the poster boards being referenced and certain statements that I made or things of that nature. And she was like, I was looking forward to having a conversation with her about it, because I thought we were cool. So this kind of caught me off guard. Even Phaedra's face was like, what? Like, and honestly, I don't think Britt has the money to sue anybody. That's why that whole situation with the lawsuit she got against Bravo, she didn't file it. So I'm like, is she hoping that, like, with threatening them with a $20 million lawsuit, that they're going to be able to, like, negotiate something so it doesn't go to court? Or was she just doing that as a scare tactic? Because I feel like her threatening Drew is more of a scare tactic tactic because I'm like, what would you be suing Drew about? And the only thing I think of is when Drew said the penis looked like she knew the penis that was attached to the photo of the person, like, you know, doing fellatio. But I'm just like, Drew said it was a joke. And I feel like you could argue that it's a joke in a court of law, especially if Drew was like, yeah, I was joking. It wasn't that deep. So I don't know why she would be trying to sue Drew. I don't get it. Then Andy started asking the ladies, more specifically Phaedra, about her headpiece. And she was like, she was inspired by Jab Jab. That headpiece was not giving that. It was giving very much Thailand, Bali. Like if I were to see like a ceremonial dance from Thai people doing that with that headpiece, I would be like, yeah, that gives the vibe. This does not give like Caribbean culture. it just like, that's not the vibe it was given. Then Andy ends up asking, like, does anybody want to set any intentions for the group? Portia speaks up saying that, you know, I'm in my healing journey, in my healing era, and I'm starting to feel like the old Portia, you guys. And I just feel like I want to get to the point where, like, at the end of this, I'm moving forward with people or I'm closing the door with them. Okay. But I'm moving on nonetheless. And the camera split screens and you have Portia in the middle, Drew on one side, and then you have Shamia on the other. I said, okay. So then we have Cynthia coming on stage because the stage looked weird. I don't get why they couldn't move Drew to the opposite end of the couch or where Portia and Phaedra were, or if they could move Kelly or maybe even Angela. Well, not Angela, but either Kelly or Drew should have been sitting over there because it just looked awkward. And every time they panned over to Portia and Phaedra, it looked bare. It looked weird. So we finally see that they brought Cynthia on stage early because Britt's not there. So everyone's excited to see Cynthia. And then Andy ends up saying, let's give it up for the best friend in Real Housewives history. I say, I know you lying. I know you like, look, Marlo gets on everybody's nerves. She is Marlo. Emphasis on the low. But she is the best, if not the best housewife friend of. Okay? She was a horrible full-time housewife, but as a friend of, she's the best friend of when it comes to Real Housewives of Atlanta. And for me, presumably, Real Housewives, like the universe. So I don't even know why you tried to give Cynthia all of that and disrespect Marlo. Let's not, Andy. So Cynthia says that she enjoyed being a friend of. Everyone said that, you know, she was a great addition to the show. She definitely was able to like float through everybody. Cynthia says she was able to connect with everyone because, you know, I've gotten married on the show. I've gotten divorced on the show. I've been through friendship breakups on the show. So she was like, I felt like I really was in my element as a friend of, and she really enjoyed it. So then they start talking about Cynthia's anatomy, her hood, and I was just like, why are we talking about this lady's clit? I don't care. I don't care. And we also talk about her new boyfriend. She finally gives us his name. His name is not Amsterdam. His name is actually Lay Prince. He is a Amsterdam artist. I think she said a DJ and like a singer or something like that in Amsterdam. He's 39 years old. They also bring up, you know, Phaedra's fake boyfriend, Shaq. He 32 years old. And that's why, you know, they giggling and kikiing so much because they with the young men. I said, I guess. So now it's really time to get into the reunion. So we pretty much start off with Portia's segment first, where, you know, they show her package where she's talking to her attorney, complaining about how Simon doesn't want her filming in the house and he's trying to stop that. We then have her getting into it with Drew with the help of Shamia at Shamia's birthday, where they're questioning Drew for, you know, hanging out with Dennis and the things that they've heard. Portia ends up saying, you could sleep with him, marry him, date him, I don't care. But what I have an issue with is you going behind my back trying to film with him, and that's some low down dirty stuff right there. So then you have Dennis and Portia actually having a conversation about it, and Dennis being like, Drew's going to use the platform for promotion, and then Portia saying, you about to piss me off because anytime you show up on camera and it's with another housewife and it's not me, that's a problem. Then we have the scene where Drew is talking to Dennis where she's like, you told me she was cool with it and now she got a problem with me. Like, how did that happen? And then it ends with Portia getting emotional because they run the segment where Phaedra talks about Londi passing away. So Portia is getting emotional on stage. Cynthia's like, give her a minute. Cynthia was irritating me because I'm like, girl, Shush, Cynthia. Like, clearly we know to give the lady a minute. So then Andy ends up saying that must be very hard to, see that about Londi. And Portia's like, yes. And then Andy said, in lighter news, it was really nice to finally see you filming in your home. And he was like, how did that feel? And Portia said it felt great. She said, in the prenup, we didn't even think about, like, we really didn't want a prenup. She was like, we were so in love. I said, a lie, don't care who tell it. But she was like, we were so into each other that I was just like, maybe we don't even need a prenup. But in the prenup, I asked for the home. He acquired the house before we got married. And she was like, whether I can maintain it or not, that is something that I wanted. And so I'm happy that I was able to get it. And she goes on to talk about, their divorce, because Andy ends up asking, so where are you in the divorce and how are you with Simon? And Portia basically just says, it's like the phantom to divorce. Like, I'm like hers. And she points to Drew and Kelly, but she was more specifically talking about Kelly because like this, she said the same thing happened to me where I thought I was getting a divorce. I went to court and then I wasn't divorced. And so we see a side conversation happening with Kelly and Drew where Drew is like, who's she talking about? And Kelly is like, I think she's talking about me, but our divorces were not the same thing, but okay. So then she basically says that I thought we were good, but we weren't good. Like we're still legally together and we're still working on trying to get a divorce. So then Andy says, so where is Simon at this point? And Portia said, for legal reasons, I'd rather not really talk about Simon. So then Andy said, well, I heard on the streets that he got detained by ICE. And they, Portia looks at Phaedra and Phaedra basically was like, yeah, that is true. He's not a U.S. citizen. So it seems to be like something going on with his paperwork. They then start talking about, how people feel like Portia is the one that called ICE on him. And Shamia was like, that's awful. Like, why would people think that she would be happy about that? And Portia ends up saying, it doesn't serve me for him to be detained. It actually like prolongs this situation that we're having. So I would not have called ICE on him. So there's that. The conversation continues with Andy asking Shamia, like, are Gerald and Simon friends? And Shamia ends up saying, like, they're friendly. We went on couples trips, but we did tell Portia to make sure that she vetted Simon based off of the information that we heard in the streets about him potentially being fraudulent and a scammer. And my thing about it is Shamia is a bad friend in the sense of like, girl, you pushed your man. I will never forget that video, and I'm going to play it for y'all again. It's giving Taken. It's giving Look Away. Oh, give him some sugar. Like, girl.
What is giving, Portia?
Taken.
It's giving Taken. It's giving Look Away.
Taken for real.
Oh, give me some sugar.
If someone is my best friend and I heard that the man that they are trying to potentially marry with a daughter was a known scammer and a fraudster, I'm telling my friend, you're stupid if you marry that man. I don't care what you think he has, but if the whole streets of Atlanta is telling me that that man is out here being fraudulent, don't get caught up with him. Date him. Have a little fun with him, but don't tie yourself to him. So I'm just like, okay, girl. Due diligence was earned because she did, it took her and Simon 9 months to make their prenup. And she also was like, at one point we didn't even want to do a prenup because we were so in love. The way that Angela giggled, I said, yeah, girl, because who's believing that y'all was in love? So the conversation switches, because here's the thing, before I get to the next part of this segment, I believe Portia knew that Simon was a scammer and knew that he was fraudulent, but the good outweighed the bad to her. She thought she was marrying a man that was a multi-millionaire, and in her mind, what the people are saying in the streets, the way I got with him eventually is going to pay off because I'm getting with this rich man right here who's going to be able to take me all across the world and and if Shamia heard the rumors about Simon, I know for sure Portia heard the rumors about Simon, but she didn't care. She didn't mind the red flag. She didn't mind the things that she heard about him that seemed to make him fraudulent. And also for her to say that she did her due diligence, but in the beginning of the season when she sat down with her lawyer, she said that like there were certain financial documents that Simon would not provide her, lets me know that, girl, you didn't work hard enough and you didn't care. So now you here with egg on your face. So then the conversation switches to a viewer's question where someone ends up asking Kelly, why did you need to have validation from Portia by asking her, like, why'd you take that lady's husband? Were you doing it out of concern or were you trying to be messy? And so Kelly says, I did it out of concern. Portia's like, no, you didn't. You didn't even know me before you asked me those questions. And, they show the segment because Portia was like, you also were yelling at me. Kelly said, for one, I wasn't yelling at you. And two, I did ask out of concern because I was wondering what happened. I feel like Kelly should have just been like, yes, I was being messy. I was being messy and I was concerned because the streets are saying you go into people's houses and you walk out with their husbands. On top of that, girl, I'm nosy. Like, everyone wants to know, like, what happened between y'all. You supposed to return back with your husband and he nowhere here or there and you getting a divorce. I would have just owned it. So then the conversation continues with Portia saying, well, did you get your answer? And Kelly's like, no, I didn't get it, other than you just saying that, you know, you loved him a lot and I didn't believe that it was real. So then Portia gets frustrated with Kelly where she's like, you know, me and you had a conversation where we spoke to each other woman to woman. And, you know, we both admitted that we were going through tumultuous divorces where our husbands were airing out our divorce documents online and things of that nature. And Kelly is like, Portia, but our divorces are not the same thing. You were married for 11 months. I was married for 11 years. That's like comparing apples to peaches. Like, let's not do that, Portia. So Portia's like, oh, so are you trying to say what I went through didn't matter? And Kelly's like, no, but I'm just saying what I had wasn't the same thing. So then Portia was like, let's be real. Like, we both were fighting for, you know, our, like, you know, financial situations. Kelly ends up saying, girl, I was fighting that man physically, like literally and financially. It's not the same. And as Portia and Kelly are going back and forth, you can tell that Andy is so proud of Portia. Like, he was trying so hard to not smile while she was going like at Kelly. But I said, oh, you happy that your daughter is doing well. And so she ends up saying, I'm actually done with this conversation. I got what I need out of it. And Kelly said, good. And Portia said, good. And Kelly said, good again. I said, oh. I can definitely tell if this situation continues on or this cast comes back, Kelly and Portia going to be getting into it. And I definitely feel like Kelly is going to give Portia a run for her money. Okay. So the segment continues with Portia where we have her getting another viewer's question where they basically said, is there a sibling in the works for Pilar? Because she loves the relationship Dennis and Portia show on her YouTube channel. That's when Portia says, you know, Dennis is a gem, you know, like that's why I needed my co-parent. Okay. Like, you know, I needed someone to be there for me going through this divorce with Simon. I said, okay, girl. And I'm like, he's a gem, but he's the same person that you yelled out in Mexico that you wanted him in a Mexican prison. He's a gem, but your family viciously assaulted him, ripping his shirt off his back. And mind you, ripping somebody's shirt off their back is no small feat, especially if that's real cotton. That's thick material. That's not no polyester blend. He's a gem, but you threw a boom mic, plates, and everything you could pick up at that restaurant at him. But okay, I still don't understand how Dennis is around Portia other than, you know, for the love of his child, but girl, could not be me. So she ends up saying that's why she was so protective. She also says that, you know, that all we do is laugh and kiki with each other. Kelly says under her breath, always laughing up in that man's house. And Portia was like, what did you say? And Kelly's like laughing up in that man's house. And Portia's like, that's my house. What did you get in the divorce? And Kelly was like, I sold my house. And she was like, yeah, I heard you had to sell your house. Okay, you should have had a better prenup. And Kelly was like, I was happy to sell my house. I'm happy where I'm at. I'm good where I'm at. And then Portia was like, you look good. And Kelly said, I know I do. And mind you, if Kelly is being honest, and I do think she is about how physically abusive that relationship was with her husband, I don't think she would want to live in that house, especially the same man who had no problem threatening her in front of a judge. Like, I would leave that house too because he knows the layout of that house. And so if he wanted to come up in that house and hurt me and mine, he could, you know? So I said, okay, girl, that's a lot. The segment continues with a viewer's question where a person ends up asking Portia, why would you say that you were going to F Charles Oakley after the way that people have been dragging you through the mud with the way that you got with Simon? Portia says, you know what? I want to apologize for that. You know, I apologized to Angela at Cynthia's barbecue, and she apologized to me about bringing up Simon because she felt like she was dragging it. Angela says, no. I only brought that up because you brought up Charles first. And she did. When they were at, I think it was called The Bank, where that whole situation that went down with Kenya and Britt Eady happened, Portia did bring up Charles, but she was like, I know a little something about Charles, but I heard a little something. And then Angela was like, what did you hear about my husband? And Portia was like, we're not going to get into it. So, you did bring up Charles first. So then Angela ends up saying the only reason why I brought up Simon in Nashville was because you brought up Charles first. And I asked Shamia, well, how did they get together? And Shamia said that she was a matchmaker. And Shamia said, pause. No, I did not. I did not get them together. Don't put that on me. She was like, I thought they were a beautiful couple, but I did not put them together. And so Drew is at the end of the couch saying, well, I did hear that was a thing, that you did get them together. Kelly had me weak because Kelly was like, well, baby. And Shamia was like, you hear a lot of things, but I did not get them together. So then Andy ended up asking Portia, well, did Shamia get you two together? Like, and is this a plan that you guys came up with because you didn't want people to perceive the story about you sliding into his DMs the way that people were taking it? So then Portia was like, well, no, she didn't get us together. Like, she paused, like she hesitated. And so everyone's like, oh, what was that? And so she was like, no, I can bear, take the heat. I got with the man, I no longer have the man. We see how it ended out. And now, I gave him back. I said, girl, you didn't give him back to nobody. The government took him and you got played. All right. And so Shamia ends up saying that, y'all, I did not get them together, even though that's what y'all are hearing. She was like, roll the footage. So then they show a flashback where Shamia does say, I was at the beginning when they first met. I was there throughout all of this when they were in Nashville. So that's not Shamia saying that, she's a matchmaker, but then you did say that you were there when they first met. So one could surmise that you were a matchmaker. But I do remember Portia saying on Portia Family Matters that she slid into his DMs, and then Simon trying to play it off like, no, she didn't, but then was like, no, yes, she did slide into my DMs. And now with Simon doing interviews, now that he's free from ICE, he says that he felt like he was targeted by Portia because Portia slid into his DMs at a vulnerable time when he was going through his divorce with Fallon, because Portia slid into Simon's DMs right when he posted that Fallon and him were getting a divorce. So I don't know if Shamia was really the matchmaker or not, but either way, it looked funny. And shouts out to Kempire because he posted, because I was watching part of his his review that he did with Layla Lynn in the Grace Report. But I also saw that he posted this on I think Instagram, where it's a screenshot of Portia saying, I'ma stick beside him, and it's a picture of Simon, and then Shamia in the comments saying, up and mother loving stuck, and then Portia responding back to her saying, thank you, bestie, best matchmaker ever. So I don't know if that was the plan, to act like that Shamia got them together, but then again, this is the same Shamia that we have pictures of her, Portia, and Fallon together. So I don't know, girl. She could have put them together, and here we are. Here we are. So things continue after that. So the next scene we have is Portia and Drew getting into it. Andy ends up asking Drew, you were on a podcast recently, and in that podcast, you pretty much said that you felt like Portia's return was a flop. And Drew is asked, can she stand by what she said? And Drew says, yes, I stand by what I said. Portia was supposed to give us lifestyle, and that's not what she gave us. Portia responds to that by saying, girl, you need to worry about who Ralph got flip-flopping in that basement than worrying about what I got going on. Then Drew says, Simon says, you don't have a storyline. And honestly, I agree with Drew. Portia was supposed to give us lifestyle of the rich and famous, and she didn't give us anything. She barely talked to us about her divorce. And I honestly believe, had Portia still been with Simon, she wouldn't care about Drew and Ralph in the studio and filming. She would probably still be friends with Shamia because then she would want to run the show as two of the rich girls running this group. But because she didn't have anything to really give us, she had to harp on what was going on with Drew and make that situation an issue. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand why Portia was upset with Drew, and I understand why Drew was upset with Portia. Because on one hand, Portia does have a point. Why are you filming with my baby daddy, and why couldn't you find another producer than with him? Like, we live in Atlanta, the music mecca. Like, everybody makes beats. Everybody wants to be a rapper or a singer or a producer. Like, why couldn't you find somebody else? But I also feel like Portia was only mad because she couldn't control what they were saying, and she was worried that they were saying things negatively about her. And she was just like, I can't handle no more of people talking bad about me, with Simon every, like, 3 to 5 business days getting on the internet on my back. Okay, he been on my neck for days and months, and I don't have time for it. But I also understand Drew to a certain extent, where she's like, well, Dennis is helping me. I actually got content pushed out there. I'm going to stay with somebody who's actually believing in what I'm doing. But I also do feel like Drew knew what she was doing to a certain extent, because she wouldn't be happy if Portia was out here filming with her baby daddy. Either way, this was a non-issue that didn't need to be this big, that honestly, if they sat down and actually had a conversation, then they would have got somewhere. They would have got somewhere, if you ask me. So, next thing you know, Portia ends up saying, how are you going to say I don't have a storyline when Dennis is my family? That is a part of my storyline because he is my family. Drew ends up saying nothing nefarious was happening between me and Dennis. I wasn't speaking badly about you. He wasn't speaking badly about you. And it is what it is. So then Andy ends up asking Portia, do you really believe that she was like selling ass for beats? And Drew and everybody else was like, no, we don't. Portia was like, no, I don't. But she was like, based off the text message that I saw. And then Drew was like, what text messages did you see? And she was like, well, I showed Ralph the text messages. And Drew is like, yeah, you showed Ralph the text messages, and what you're saying is something totally different than what he's saying. And so Portia doesn't produce the text messages. And shouts out to the Brooke Ashley, because on Twitter she got quote tweeted by Drew, and she said this. She said, if Drew said that to Dennis, then why didn't producers show the text? Hashtag RHOA. Drew quote tweeted saying, right, they show everything else. Because if Drew said something to the effect that she was willing to sleep with Dennis for studio time, then they would have showed that. So Portia says she doesn't have the receipts, and Drew said that's mighty convenient that you don't. So then Cynthia chimes in, and she's basically like, well, Drew, I feel like you put yourself in this place, because why would you feel the need to work with Dennis when we live in Atlanta? Like, it kind of lends to the narrative that something nefarious is going on. And I wanted to tell Cynthia to shut up, because the same way you're trying to like scold and chastise Drew, I think Portia was just on an interview saying that she would take Leon or mess around with Leon. And I'm like, that's your baby daddy. You talking about baby daddies hit different. Are you going to check Portia for the things that she said? You're not. So shut up, Cynthia. So next thing you know, Drew ends up saying, I don't know why there was an issue, because Portia knew that me and Dennis were working together. We talked about it at my birthday. Portia ends up saying, what are you not getting, Drew? I didn't know that y'all were working together. So then Shamia chimes in, and she's like, yeah, she did say she didn't know about it. So then Drew was like, girl, do you want to go sit on her lap? Like, why are you chiming into this? And so then Shamia was like, whoa. Like, I was like, if you let me finish out my thought, I wasn't even gonna come at you like that. So then the girls kind of start going back and forth, and then Andy kind of calms it down, and he was like, Shamia, you seem like you have something to say. So Shamia turns her body towards Drew, and she basically says, when I asked you about if you were messing around with Dennis, I asked you in earnest. I was being like, it was an innocent question. When we ended up going to the gym together with you and Angela, and the way y'all bit my head off saying that I asked, did you F Dennis? That threw me for a loop, because me and you have never had issues, so I didn't understand where you were coming from with that. So then Angela ends up saying, well, Shamia, the only reason why I was coming at you like that is because Portia said leave it alone, and you wouldn't leave it alone. So then Shamia ends up saying, Portia doesn't run me, like she doesn't own me, like I'm a grown adult, like I can ask that question. So Portia said, I did say that I didn't want to talk about them dating or the dating rumors or anything. But you were like, no, I'm going to ask them, are they effing and all of this stuff? And all I wanted to do was focus on the filming aspect. So then that caused Shamia and Portia to start arguing, where Shamia's like, girl, don't do that. Don't do that. You know for a fact that's not true. And Portia's like, it is true, Shamia. So then Drew ends up saying, because Shamia ends up saying, I didn't even know that Dennis and Drew were filming together at that time. And Drew said, at the time of the birthday, we did not film together. We had not filmed together. So I don't understand why it was an issue. So then Shamia was like, yes, that's what I was trying to say. So that's why I'm saying my question to you was innocent. It wasn't meant to be malicious. So then Portia on the other side of the couch is like, oh, so now we're all just gonna lie. Okay. Like saying, because she feels like, y'all know I didn't know about them filming together. But Drew was like, girl, we hadn't even filmed together before this, but because you pissed me off, I filmed with him anyway. Okay? So then they start talking about Drew's music and how I think her album is not called Bad Girl, but she has a song called Bad Girl. And they were like, yeah, it's a good song. So then Portia was like, yeah, I would never knock Drew's music because it's actually good. And then she was like, that's why I had an issue with Drew getting on the Breakfast Club talking negatively about my hair business and saying how it wasn't good hair. So then Drew was like, girl, you have been poking me and bothering me this whole entire season, coming at me. So now when the bear gets poked and I react to it, all of a sudden I'm the issue. Like, that's the consequences of your actions towards me. So then a viewer's question is posed towards Portia, where the person is like, Portia, don't you think you owe Drew an apology, especially after watching this entire season and noticing like nothing bad went down between her and Dennis. They didn't speak badly about you. They weren't flirting with each other. They were in the studio trying to make music. So then Portia says, you know what? And she gets up. She's like, get up. And everyone's kind of like, okay, girl, is you about to hit her? Like, what's going on? We know you quick to fight, okay? Portia Ali. So then she tells Drew to get up, and they actually hug. And when I tell you, I said, what in the entire hell is this cringy ass hug? All I could do is laugh. So they hug, and Portia ends up like, they have a moment where they laugh about it, and she was like, no, I wanted to apologize to you because I was wrong in the way that I was coming at you. She was like, I was on the attack mode. I was protecting myself. And every time we were around each other, I felt triggered. So I just came at you. So then Drew ends up saying that she appreciates Portia's apology because Portia then apologizes for filming with Ralph. Because she was like, when I filmed with Ralph at the time, I felt justified in doing so. And then Andy said, were you doing it to be petty? She said, most definitely. But she was like, when I look back at it, I didn't feel right about that because she was like, I wouldn't want anybody filming with Simon. So she was like, I'm sorry for that. So then, Drew says, I appreciate that. She then goes on to say that that's why it was so hard for us to be having these issues because when my first season getting on the show, you were the person I called all the time. You really had my back. So for us to be beefing like that was hard. And that's when Portia says, like, girl, I was in attack mode. I was trying to protect myself. Like, I am truly sorry for the way that I behaved. So we finally move off of Portia, okay? And now we're talking about Kelly. Andy ends up asking Kelly about her relationship with Britt Edie. And he's pretty much like, you guys were so close to the point that y'all were finishing each other's sentences. Why did things shift when you got the stylist? Kelly ends up saying, well, I wanted to give her the stylist because she was going through a hard time after what happened with Kenya, and I wanted to make her feel better. And, it was not for her to take the whole entire team. Like, it was just for you to use until you found a stylist because she said that she was having a hard time finding one. She goes on to say that, after a while, it kind of felt like she wanted to be me. You know what I'm saying? So then Portia speaks up and she's like, well, Britt is not here, but Britt felt like it was more so of jealousy. And so Kelly is like, let me be clear. Britt ain't got nothing for me to be jealous of. Nothing for me to be jealous of. But I do remember her, Kelly doing an interview where she said that Britt was also trying to get her cleaning lady. That would annoy me too. I understand why people feel like this issue with Kelly is like a non-issue. Like, they're like, Kelly is jealous. And I think to a degree she might have been, where it's like, here I am, this is my makeup team, my stylist and all that stuff. But the garments that are being pulled for me, I'm not looking as good as she does. But I also think Kelly has to start start dressing for her body, because even the dress she has on, had they took the ruffles off or took one thing away, even with all of the stuff she had, I said, girl, you got on too much. You got to kind of like take something off, maybe 2 or 3 things off. But I do understand her frustrations where it's like, this is mine. I just think the way Kelly went about it was bad. Like, I think she should have realized that her team was enjoying dressing Britt more than her, and then I would have just found me another stylist and been like, you can have them, and called it a day. And then I would have stepped out looking better than Britt if I was Kelly. But I do not think that Kelly is jealous of Britt, because Britt gives scam and fraud to me, whereas Kelly, she seems to have a semblance of some normalcy in her life, and I don't think nobody gonna be coming and talking about she frauding them out of some waffles and chicken, you know? So then Portia chimes in and say, she not here, but I'm just going to say it. Basically, she told me that there was an alliance between the newbies where she said you went to Houston's, and she was like Kelly, Shamia, and Britt, and y'all basically were like, well, Phaedra is here and we have to really perform and we have to take Portia down. Kelly's like, girl, what? And then Shamia's like, that's not what happened. So then Shamia starts talking and she's like, yes, we went to another restaurant and I basically told the ladies, I want y'all to get to know Portia. We're young, we're fly, we're free. Like, don't come at her so hard. And so they agreed to it, and Portia was also a part of the alliance. Portia is like, girl, no, I wasn't. Like, what are you talking about? And Shamia's like, yes, you were, Portia. You were. Like, you were a part of it. And Portia's like, no, I was not. And so Phaedra even chimes in and says she does remember Britt saying that, because Britt told her that as well, that they met up and formed an alliance. And so Portia says, I was not a part of any alliance because I've been on this show for a long time and alliances kill shows. So why would I be in an alliance? So then Shamia's like, you definitely were in an alliance. And Portia's like, no, I wasn't. So then it was interesting how the camera panned to Kelly, because Kelly didn't even really make a facial expression. She just kind of looked the other way. So I don't know if Portia is lying or if Shamia is lying, or if Kelly is like, yeah, girl, she was a part of it, but she's saying she not. And Britt not here, so I'm not even about to get into it, but I didn't really know who to believe. So then Shamia kind of laughs like, okay, girl. So then you hear Portia say, I want to be able to talk without being interrupted. And I said, oh, it's about to get active between those two. So then Andy ends up asking Kelly, do you think that you were being an enabler or a good friend to Britt when Britt was bringing up Angela's whole outside baby thing? Like, it never seemed like you held her accountable, but I think this was more of like a viewer's question. And so Kelly said, no, I feel like I was being a good friend. But she said, you know what, Angela, I can't apologize to you and realize that, like, it sucks when somebody lies on you. And I apologize for that. So Angela was like, if I would have known that there was an allegiance, I said, girl, alliance? And I said, okay. She was like, then that makes sense, because she was like, Kelly, it did seem like you wasn't really trying to like get to know me. Like, anytime Britt would say something, you stood like 10 toes down with her. You didn't hear Drew say, girl, well, why weren't we in the alliance? Like, we young. And then Andy was like, why didn't you include Angela? But then Kelly was like, well, y'all are the Chicago twins, so we already assumed that y'all was clicked up together. So they then started talking about the situation that went down between Britt and Kelly with the whole abortion situation. And Kelly ends up saying, like, I never had a conversation with Britt about abortion. She goes on to say that, like, I had a conversation with my stylist about it, and I do believe that they had a conversation about me, and it was used to hurt me. But she said, again, it's my body, my choice. She was like, I got my tube tied right after I had my twins, after finding out they had osteo imperfectus. And so, like, I can't have a kid, but now I have to tell my daughters about what terminating a pregnancy is. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure they know what it is. I know your adult daughter, well, no, she's not an adult. I know the 17-year-old knows about it. But it was just interesting because I do think Kelly has had one, but I don't think she ever told Britt about it, because Kelly and Britt didn't even really know each other before getting on this show. Because I remember Kelly doing an interview where she basically said that she had only known Britt for like a year and a half. So I don't believe that she would share that with Britt. you know. So yeah, it was a messy situation. So they continue on with Kelly, where Andy ends up asking Kelly, you know, you're officially divorced, how do you feel about that? She was like, I feel free. Andy said, what did you like, how did you shake out? She says, you know, I ended up with over $200,000 in attorney fees, but it's good to be free. So then Andy ends up saying, like, how does everybody feel about Kelly having a bodyguard? And everyone's like, well, we know why. And then Portia says, well, you know, there's another reason why. And Kelly is like, what's the other reason? Everyone's like, what's the other reason? So then she ends up saying, well, you know, some are saying that she's exaggerating, that the husband's not really trying to get after her. And Portia and Kelly's like, why would I? Like, what are you talking about? So then Drew says, well, you know, Ralph ran into him as well. So then Kelly says, like, I got a restraining order because I, like, you know, you can't just get a restraining order. Then Phaedra was like, well, you can do that. And then Portia says, yes, in the state of Georgia. And Kelly's like, do you think, like, I would rather be paying other bills than paying Kenny to follow me around? Like, y'all are effing crazy if you think that I'm just paying this man to follow me around and I'm not, like, in danger. And I wouldn't question that. Like, I don't know, something about that was just like, why are you questioning? Like, Portia, I mean, I get it. Portia was trying to get Kelly back because she feels like Kelly been on her neck or been coming at her this reunion. But, like, that was not something to play around with. Like, you don't really know the ins and outs of that divorce. And if she has police reports of that man putting his hands on her and her saying, like, I had to sleep in the closet, you shouldn't be questioning that or trying to put that out there to put doubt in people's minds. So I didn't really like that. So then the conversation moves on to where Andy ends up asking Kelly about her chicken and waffles, like her second location. And he was like, you know, it says that you owed over $100,000 in rent. And she was like, Andy said, what was going on? And Kelly basically said, I had to pay $200K in attorney fees. Like, girl, what else do you think is going on? So then the next thing someone asks is like, you got a lot of expenses, Kelly, and then you got to pay all this rent. Like, is, you know, having lavish parties, spoiling your daughters, or even dying your dog really worth it? And she said it is. She keeps saying, you know, Cha-Cha got stolen, that's why. That girl, put a chip in the dog and call it a day. Your dog looks ugly. It looks fugly. I'm sorry, Kelly, your dog is ugly, and either find a better groomer or allow your dog's hair to grow out a little bit more, because it's not cute. It's not cute. So then they talk about Britt and Kelly falling out. Kelly says she'll probably never be friends with Britt ever again because she was like, there was no, like, reciprocity. Like, I did all this stuff for her, and when I needed her most, she did not in turn help me out. Shamia, Andy ends up asking, like, were you stirring the pot? And Shamia was like, no, I actually thought I could help them get back to where they used to be, but then I caught a stray. But also, Shamia, you came into that conversation with Britt real hostile. So it's like, you know how that lady roll. So she was just like, you know, so then Kelly just says, you know, I was there for Britt and she wasn't there for me. So then, you know, I tried to help her look the part of being successful. So Drew is like, is she successful or is she not? Kelly's like, I don't really know. But she was like, I spent over $1,000 getting IVs for me, her husband, and her after the Kenya thing. And it just, the love or the support wasn't reciprocated. So I'm done with the friendship. The last segment is Angela. And baby, Angela, this flopped really bad, girl. I really thought Angela was going to produce some receipts, but what she has is kind of convoluted, and it just seems like coincidence. And I'm not saying that Phaedra couldn't be involved with this, but it's looking more like she wasn't, and that Alex and Marcus played in Angela's face, which in turn we got played in our faces with, and it feels like Angela got bamboozled. Because to be honest, I get where Angela is coming from based off of Phaedra's behavior. She was very adamant about knowing Charles and not knowing that Angela was his wife. Then she was making digs about, like, her age and stuff. So I would think, based off of the way that we've seen Phaedra show up on shows before, that she could be a part of, like, a plot like this. But Angela needed concrete proof, and yearbook photos and Facebook photos isn't concrete proof. I was hoping that she was gonna pull out, like, a DM or like a recorded message, but that's not what we got. So they start off Angela's segment, you know, talking about how like she was pretty much like a fan favorite. They run her B-reel footage. We get this scene of Charles in the kitchen, Angela with her mom, RIP to her. You can tell that Angela was getting emotional because I think her mom did pass away before they filmed the reunion. Then you have Phaedra talking about like, you know, I didn't know that Charles had a wife. Then you have the situation that went down with Portia and Angela at the bank event where she was like, well, you know, I know Charles. And Angela is like, what do you know about my husband? And Portia didn't say anything to where Angela and Kelly were talking about the whole baby situation and how she was like, Wendy thought I was talking about Charles, but I was actually talking about my first child's father. And then the situation that went down at Kelly's event where Marcus said, cheers if your name is Angela and your husband Charles is cheating on you. And then Marcus being at the Oakley fundraiser and basically implicating Phaedra as the one, you know, being the godfather of Atlanta and setting this up. So Andy was like, Angela, you really believe that Phaedra did this? And Angela was like, yeah. And Phaedra was like, why? Why would you think I did that? And so she brings up somebody by the name of Kimberly something. And that is, I guess, supposed to be Marcus's aunt. And so Phaedra was like, I don't know who that is, girl. So she was like, well, I have something. So she pulls behind her and it's an envelope full of like printouts. And so she was like, this is Marcus. And then this is Kimberly so-and-so. And isn't this your brother, Phaedra? Like, isn't this your brother? And Phaedra was like, yes, that is my brother. So I guess it was either a photo of them together or maybe they were in the same class together. But it seems like she was showing like yearbook photos and Facebook photos because the printout looks like a Facebook layout. And so Angela was like, you sure you don't know these people, Phaedra? And Phaedra was reiterating, I don't know who you're talking about. So then Angela says, Phaedra, it's a pattern with you of lying and like coming after people. So Andy was like, do you really believe this guy, you know, in cahoots with Phaedra? And Angela's like, well, yeah, because there's only like 3 high schools and 3 middle schools in Athens. And he told me Phaedra did it. He also said Kelly was a part of it, but he was trying his best not to say Phaedra's name. And then he eventually said Phaedra's name. So Phaedra was like, he willingly gave you that information. And Angela's like, no, I had to like pull it out of him. And Phaedra's like, why would I do this? Like, I just got back on the show. And then Andy was like, were you trying to take Angela down, Phaedra? And Phaedra was like, no, because I don't know that lady. So then Angela turns to Kelly and she basically says, like, you know, Phaedra was trying to solidify her spot for next season. And so then Phaedra was like, why would I have to do that when I already got a contract for next season? So, like, what are you talking about? So then Angela gets annoyed with Portia, where she's like, Portia, it's crazy how much you're willing to defend Phaedra based off of the history and the things that she's done to you and to other people. And you even said that you thought it was me that did it to myself. And Portia said the only reason why I thought you did it to yourself was because this whole entire situation seems convoluted and crazy. And that's where the episode ends. You know what's convoluted and crazy is that I was able to turn this into probably an hour to 55-minute long episode. Oh my God. I really be talking, just be running my mouth. But we're done, y'all. So as always, remember to be bravely authentic. Definitely hop down in the comments below. Share your thoughts with me as it pertains to the episode. Like the video. And I'm out, y'all. Deuces.